quite a panel. Our challenge is to answer 4 questions. I'm going to have to keep you to time, even though you all outrank me. The 4 questions, just, by the way, if there's an air raid siren, we need to evacuate immediately to the shelter downstairs if you hear it. The 4 questions: how you assess Ukraine's battlefield achievements, what or will the West stick with Ukraine? It's a question people are asking. Is it time to reevaluate the transatlantic union? And whilst Ukraine is holding the line, is the West preparing adequately for future Russian aggression? What I thought I'd do is give you all a chance at the first question. 2 minutes each. As I said, I'm holding the line. We've got to get it all. We've got to get it all in. We want to hear answers to all those questions. Let's start with you, Admiral Dragone. How do you assess Ukraine's battlefield achievements, and what untapped potential could change the balance?
You take time, right?
I'm keeping time. Let's go.
Okay. Achievement pretty much are pretty clear. I would say, first, Russia didn't achieve a quick victory, a victory at all, and that's a big point. Ukraine, kept its sovereignty, and we had a great example of adaptability under pressure, under conflict, and we, as the West, we learn a lot. We learn about drone, we learn about dispersed capability, we learn about sustainability, resilience from military and from people. So these are, concrete items that we can take into consideration and to witness the achievement, the resilience, and the potential of Ukraine. The resilience is not anymore an abstract issue. We see a soldier holding the line. We see citizen under fire and recovering. We see communities, getting back to normal life in a short period of time. Everything is totally astonishing, and that's a witness of the Ukrainian resilience and on. On the other side, are we truly awakened? I would say that we are awakened, and we are working on it. We had a great, we had a slap in our face. I think that the West and Europe is on the right path. A great achievement with the Hague summit in last year. More money, more industrial capability. We need more and more, by the way, and we are working on that direction. I think we are in the right path, but a lot has to be done, and we don't have to give up, and we don't have to decrease our effort.
Okay, General Clancy.
Just on the first question, right?
On untapped, Ukraine's achievements. Yeah. And is there untapped potential that would shift the balance?
Okay. We can all remember the first days when, not several miles from here, when the Russian tanks were heading towards Kyiv. And where we were then to where Ukraine is now is an extraordinary example of what they have achieved on the battlefield. And I know that many of the generals here will comment perhaps on the resilience and on the tactical, if not operational point. But I think the most significant part of the achievement on the battlefield for the Ukrainians is what I call the triple IA, which is their innovation, the integration, and the adaptability they have around what they have done. They have outpaced Russian, despite being outnumbered, despite being technically under strength in terms of weaponry and physical human resources, but in their ability to innovate, integrate, and interoperate with their new and adapt. And they haven't been afraid to take risk and do it at speed and scale. And they have done this to an extraordinary, and that has enabled them to practically create the conditions now, which is we have a front line that's not moving at all. That would be my overwhelming sense.
General Carignan.
Yes, good afternoon. Very grateful to be here in person this year with my esteemed colleagues on this panel, and we share a lot of common challenges together as chiefs of defense. But I would like maybe to concentrate my comment and fully agree with my colleagues have mentioned on the human aspects of the achievements of the Ukrainians on a battlefield. The pace, we've been talking about this, the pace of decision-making due to the technology available for communication and how fast the data actually gets to various places on the battlefield, the pace of decision-making has greatly increased. And we've worked with the Ukrainians since 2015, and we are not surprised to see how successful they are at innovating, but this is done via decentralization of very dispersed operations and the ability to take quick decisions at the edge. So on the battlefield, young leaders are enabled to make decisions quickly and address immediate military challenge or issues that they are facing without waiting for a decision coming centrally that would come too late. So to me, this is greatly contributing to the success and how well the Ukrainian troops are performing.
Major General Cholponia.
Yes, thank you very much for having me here. It's an honor, and I'm humbled also to pay my respects to heroes, and the sacrifice has been done by heroes which were previous speakers. But I have an easy job here. I represent ACT. So ACT, it's about transformation and technology, and it's quite easy for me to talk what is new on the battlefield and what Ukrainian forces brought to the table, sort of speak. I would mention two first items will be AI integration in operation. This artificial intelligence enables forces to fight more effective. To survive and to be more lethal, and this is something that ACT is looking closely. The other thing, which is joint procurement, and you have numerous cases in Europe with joint capability procurement, especially in air defense and deep precision strike, which will bring a boost to Ukrainian forces in the current operation and in the future operation. What I would mention, one of my former professor in NPS Naval Postgrad School, Professor McCormick, told me once, when pay attention to strategy, pay attention to a war campaign, and you need three things: people, guns, and money. But I would submit that the human factor is one of the most important factor for Ukrainian forces in the future, because as critical support is coming from allies, from NATO and the EU, also human factor, it's something which can balance the game or the war in one way or another. I would conclude here just saying that on doctrinal aspects, many things have been changed. And I will just mention the network-centric warfare, which was an excellent example given by Ukrainian forces. The other, which is the autonomous platforms or deep precision strike projection with autonomous platforms. This was a breakthrough innovation and technology. And probably I will end up with resilience against a supra-saturated environment with sensors and electromagnetic jamming. So these three things are becoming very relevant for all allies forces, and we are trying to learn the best we can and to prepare the forces for the future.
Lieutenant General Król.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting Poland to this conference. Of course, it's a neighboring country. We learned a lot from what is ongoing here in Ukraine. Allow me to begin my iteration from the Russian strategy. Russians used to win the first battle and then the war. So Ukraine's achievement, from my perspective, the most significant was to withstanding this first battle, first attack. And then that was something that we Poles learned from your efforts here. You simply built, created, and implemented in depth of Ukraine political, military culture that means continuous transformation. That is something we thought that we will never be exposed to. You have presented how to change national law, how to develop national resilience. I'm not talking only about the military, but also from a little bit broader whole of government approach. This continuous adaptation is deeply rooted into your defense and innovation base, something that we in Poland and in other NATO countries try to implement as well. From my perspective, as a person in charge for transformation in Poland, executing at the same time defensive operation, changing your armed forces structure, developing your armed forces capabilities, modern capabilities with drones, satellite communication, 24/7 intel, data sharing on the highest level. That's absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Major General Pudan.
Yes, first of all, I'm very glad to be back here in Kyiv, in Ukraine, and already in this 8 months coming back, I see new achievements and new advances on a visit. Many was mentioned, but I would highlight probably what you've done with approach to your people, to soldiers, so the ones who carry the most burden in defending your freedoms, all our freedoms. And I think your approach to this, that you treat them with the respect, that you provide them with all the needed knowledge to the threats they will face. Just in these days, I visited training centers, seeing how you're advancing. So this training is more realistic. So the preparing them, and particularly not only preparing them in physical skills, in military skills, but psychological readiness. So what they will face. And also to the new threats. So this is not anymore the targets on the field, same what we usually had. So the new threats to prepare on this. And maybe the second question you also asked, what we're learning, and I want to touch upon on this, for us at least in Latvia, but I think all of us in NATO, we're learning already since 2014. So that's what we started to speak, what was mentioned here, whole of state and whole government approach. We say it, comprehensive defense, what we're implementing, so the responsibility of everyone. Your own resilience, which starts in the families, in small cells of society, in municipalities. Your clear roles, your clear plans, what we're preparing. And on the military part, I think main lesson is here, of course, readiness for sustained war. So it's not anymore a couple of days what we're planning. So how we can be capable of sustained war against massive adversary. And innovation was mentioned here, I will just highlight also. And it's not anymore about innovation 2-3 years ago, about new devices we've seen on battlefield. It's more about the concept of innovation, speed of innovation, how fast it goes around, and the concepts you're bringing. And this is what we're mainly learning, not the device itself, the big concept, what we want to copy into our new tactics, TTPs, procedures. Thank you.
Brigadier General Kashka.
Yeah, thank you, and also very honored to be on this delighted panel. To start with the enemy, if you look at Russia, they have failed every strategic goal they set out for themselves. That applies to the first days, as was said before, but that also applies if we look onto the last 4 years, and especially the last winter, where they tried to break the resilience of the great Ukrainian people. So they went through this winter. We see light at the end of the tunnel. Spring is arriving. So I would share that feeling as was laid out before. From a German perspective, it's due to the bravery of the Ukrainian people that these achievements were possible, but it was also by the unity of our common support that we provided. And now, as was said before, something interesting is happening. There is a lot flowing back. So it's as if directions are already starting to change. And that's something we have taken up in Germany, not just providing the support that is still urgently needed and that we know about, and that we try to focus on the critical military needs, which is like air defense, drones, and artillery, of course. But we now see something going back, so we want to advance our partnership, our relationship with the great Ukrainian people to a strategic partnership, because we think that there is a lot to learn from, there is a lot that we have to prepare for, and with a slight smile and with a look to my more Eastern allied comrades, I would say it took Germany a little longer to wake up, but now we've woken up and we know where to go.
So lessons from Ukraine of resilience, integration, the pace of decision-making, AI integration, adapting a government's approach, respect for soldiers and bravery. So lots to learn from Ukraine. The question now being asked is, will the West stick with Ukraine with the current security guarantees and improve those security guarantees? Admiral Dragone, we've been talking about NATO membership since 2008. When will it happen?
Well, NATO took a commitment of, I think, in Washington in 2024. So it's the path is there. Of course, there is. I mean, commitment. I mean, of course, there is now a war that must be won, and then the road to NATO membership has been stated. Step to be done, yes, but that's the normal procedure. Of course, the 32 nations need to get their unanimity, and on and on and on. I think it's something that can be foreseen in the future.
General Clancy, you got a round of applause when you mentioned that Ukraine will be in the EU. When? And, well, first of all, when?
Well, of course, that will come down to a council decision. But I think we are seeing an accelerated roadmap. We are seeing a political landscape that has changed dramatically in the very distant past, immediate past, rather. We have a very broad consensus amongst EU member states that Ukraine membership. I mean, the EU delegation ambassador is here. She'd probably be more informed on how to do this, but I think we do share, and we spoke last night, the fact that this has to happen sooner rather than later. There are other countries, of course, that are also within this space, but the roadmap and the pathway is clear now for Ukraine, and I think the process of alignment of the governance, the institutions, these are all well on the pathway, and this is really an intergovernmental, interinstitutional process that's underway and ongoing at an accelerated pace.
Is there talk, and would it make sense of a mutual defence pact in the run-up to full membership? Are there things that need to be fast-tracked?
Well, I mean, Ukraine already has a very substantive agreement and defence partnership, more or less, with the EU. They're a preferred partner. For instance, this enables Ukraine to participate in tools that the EU has put in place, such as the SAFE, which is a support for the European Union for the defence mechanism, and as an expenditure part of that. And this is a 150 billion euro tool, if you like, where member states and partners can, with their support, can engage. And this is a mechanism to kind of catalyse the industry overall, to try and bridge the gaps in terms of capabilities. So, and there's many more of those. There's military mobilities, there's a horizon, and I could go on. But as a preferred partner and a strategic partner that Ukraine already is. So we've already taken those steps and will continue to do so until full membership is achieved. But of course, in some cases this has taken decades, but I can assure you that certainly if it was for me, and I'm in the military, I'm not speaking with a political authority here in any shape, and let me caveat my comments, but I would be very optimistic in terms of if the will is transferred into the achievement, it will happen soon.
Brigadier General Kashka, you've signed an agreement with Ukraine. You're premium partners in defense. There are questions here about whether Germany's Taurus cruise missiles will be brought to Ukraine to fortify their strategy.
Well, I'm not going to go into specific weapon systems for sure. And I don't know if that's the real answer to the question, because we see so much innovation, we see so much potential, so it doesn't really focus on one specific weapon system. It's more about the continued support that we have taken responsibility, like in the Ukraine Defense Contact Group as a co-lead, together with our British comrades, to organize the support and to get the support flowing for what Ukraine needs to defend itself. As your initial question was, will the West stick to Ukraine? And I would say from a German perspective, definitely yes. I mean, we have set out all the framework that is necessary to signal clear to our own defense industry and towards our Ukrainian friends and partners that we will stick, that we are committed, and that we will stay on that path, and that we want to evolve it into even more. Because I think, coming back to your question on the specific weapon system, there's already more that we can learn from than one specific weapon system could make a difference on the battlefield.
Major General Cholponia, there's a lot of talk about the eastern nations of NATO and Article 5. Can we confirm that they will be safe if attacked?
Well, this question is highly political and should be addressed to Admiral Cavo Dragone, the chairman.
He doesn't want to take it, so it's back to you.
But what I can confirm, the Eastern countries are aware that the conclusion of the war in Ukraine, the conflict in Ukraine, has a direct impact on the future and the security of the eastern flank and the security of the entire European area. Therefore, everyone agrees that Ukraine should negotiate the peace on the position of strength. How to do this? Through support, constant support, which is coming from different directions, not only from EU and NATO, but also through bilateral agreements, coalition of will, if you may, and SATU, UDCG, other type of frameworks which are helping Ukraine to maintain the fight and to have this strength position when the times come. Well, that's pretty much I have to say, but nevertheless, Article 5 has to be agreed in the Council, and I have no doubt that this will be a testbed and it will be fulfilled by all the nations. Over to you.
If I may.
I was going to go directly to you for your response.
Nation, so I can answer directly. Yes.
What did you think of those answers?
We believe in NATO. That's and not only an assumption, but on what we're doing. And we are not waiting to see the results. We're training together. We're revising our plans. We're rehearsing them. We're developing capabilities. And I think through this we demonstrate that at least at the soldier level, there is a trust that every soldier, and the presence of Jennie here is also the demonstration of her soldiers being in Latvia, but also other nations who are present, they will stand with us. And that's on our level of discussion. We're doing our role, of course, also not only as consuming the security, but also doing our role, developing our capabilities, where our EU helping us with the funding, with the capability development, instead where NATO helps us with reasonably actionable defense plans.
Yes, and Article 5 is one of the principles upon which NATO is built, and this is serious. If Canada is deploying troops on the eastern border of NATO with Latvia, we are fully ready and prepared to fight should there be a need to do so. So this is the principle and why NATO is put together as an alliance. So, and maybe from personal experience, I know full well that as a leader of a NATO mission in the past, we got into really serious security situation, and I can tell you the decisions came very fast from the National Council, but also from the military level of NATO, and I'm fully confident that this would be the case should there be a crisis or a conflict in Europe.
Thank you. Lieutenant General Król.
This is really very important and complex question. Allow me to answer from reminding all of you that in 2022, during Madrid summit, NATO decided to accept or approve new strategic concept. Within this concept, something changed significantly. That means the first mission of NATO, it hasn't been no longer collective defense, but deterrence and defense. And that changed everything deeply in the roots of NATO, because we, as NATO, and I'm talking about former Chief of Staff Allied Joint Forces Command, we initiated our activities already in peacetime to ensure security of our member states. So deterrence, or currently being executed vigilance, enhanced vigilance activities are preconditions for our readiness to respond, and this should be absolutely clear for our adversaries, primarily Russia, that we are ready, we are on the spot, we are capable, and we will respond. This will is absolutely difficult, important and critical. However, in order to be credible, we need to build our own capabilities. Therefore, for example, Poland decided to implement largest ever in Polish 100 years history transformation and enhance the strength of Polish armed forces from 120,000 to almost 500,000. New Armed Forces Development Program signed last year clearly states that we build the largest army in this part of Europe. I'm talking about land forces. We decided to commit approximately 5% of our GDP now, and as a matter of fact, in line with our Act on Homeland Defense, every Polish prime minister is obliged to spend every year at least 3% of GDP. So we are not talking about something theoretical. We decided to build credible capabilities to deter and defend.
So we've heard from all of you there. EU membership, NATO membership remains on the table. NATO is resilient in terms of Article 5. But let's look at NATO and let's look at America now, and whether the transatlantic union should be re-evaluated. It's being talked about all the time. We'd like to get your responses, starting with you, General Carignan.
Well, on unity, that's what democracies do, and NATO is built, and I include Ukraine as part of this, is built by democracies, and democracies encourage public debates. And we will disagree amongst ourselves publicly, which is, part of what we do. I think it would be a mistake or very unwise to think that because we disagree, we are actually going to break the alliance. So we need to have that public debate. NATO has been through some very, very bumpy times before, and the alliance has stood, and this is why it is still standing today, because we do have those disagreements, but we work and navigate through them.
How bumpy is this, Admiral Dragone?
First, let me tell General Chorponea that I kill for less, okay? So, having said that, I mean, on the NATO side, sometimes there are some disagreement, but I can assure you, and we went through that recently, the military side of the house really will let the situation, I mean, we let the, hot declaration just, fade out. In a couple of days, the tragedy is not that tragedy. And again, the military side of the house, it's really united. I mean, we did it every single time there is something new going on, something, let's call it colorful. We used to meet each other either virtually or in presence if we can, and I can assure you, in all cases, the temperature at the end of the reunion or the meeting was lower and lower than what, the situation was imposing us at the very beginning. That's something that I experienced. I am enthusiastic about this, and it is recurrent.
Interesting. Thank you. Major General Pudans, is this concerning, though?
Well, United States, of course, is very significant and strategic partner for us in the Baltic states, been with us throughout our development in regaining independence. But I think at the same time, of course, as was mentioned here, this is more political debate. Militarily, we stand together, we have our cooperation plans and in revisions and contingency plans as well, of course, could be discussed. But I think on a different...
Contingency plans in a military sense if it's not a unified political...
And that's what I wanted to say, that of course alliances is significant, and we could look politically in different alliances demonstrating our probably or hoping on some deterrence effects. But from military perspective, every new additional alliance would to be reliable and credible in defense would require credible plans. And NATO has developed these credible plans, and I would suggest that we stick with these plans and look in the potentials of deviating or in the contingencies in these plans, not developing new ones, because it brings along with C2 arrangements, new force developments, and that's what we cannot afford it, particularly in this current situation when we have to constantly maintain vigilance on our borders, on looking what Russia is thinking.
Brigadier General Kashka, it's an important thing to stick together, to hold together. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, you mentioned the bumpiness, and that brings us back to the motto of this conference, darkness or dawn, so it's our choice what to look at. So I would rather suggest to look at the dawn or the light at the end of the tunnel, not do it like the Germans sometimes like to do and prolong the tunnel, but, realize there is light. So we have to have a clear analysis, a shared strategic view on the threat that we face, and I think we do, and we have that. And then we need to take on the burden of what we need to do, and that has something to do, the strength of an alliance comes from the strength of its member states. So we do have to do more and step up, and I think from a German perspective, we just released our military strategy yesterday to make that clear that we are on a path that points into one direction, that we realize that we know that we have to reassure also especially our Eastern allies. That's why we took the decision to put a brigade into Lithuania and all the other decisions in the last 2 to 3 years. So I think there is a considerable path that is laid out that brings us through maybe bumpiness. We should keep them on side. That's what I think as an Air Force pilot, if I may say so.
And to keep them on side, Lieutenant General Król, by showing them that you're stepping up, this was one of Donald Trump's messages, that other members should step up in terms of spending. You're showing that you're stepping up in terms of recruitment in the army and all the things that you just mentioned.
Okay. From the Polish perspective, and I'd like to answer also this question to some extent in relation to Ukraine. Developing Polish armed forces capabilities to be able to defend and contribute to NATO operation is something critical. And we noticed that here in Ukraine, or through this war, we realized that nobody can guarantee that the next one will be short. So what's from our perspective is really important to count on our neighbors count on our allies, count on our own capabilities, and be simply predictable. Like Poland, providing at this moment strategic depth for Ukraine, being in charge for some 90% of external worldwide 40 nations support. We want to continue, and we will continue to support Ukraine in this regard. Strengthening Polish capabilities, Polish armed forces, is just an added value to common security here in Europe. And from our perspective, what is expected from US towards us, that we Europeans will be in lead for defense of Europe against any Russian aggression. And Ukraine will play indispensable role in this future European security architecture. And two strong countries like Poland and Ukraine with really capable forces will be real, tangible deterrent factor.
Major General Cholponia. What you've heard about the bumpiness? What's your view on what's going on in NATO at the moment?
Well, everything has been said is correct, and I approve it. But I would just add that burden shift and burden sharing, it's a real thing in NATO right now. European allies are stepping up. They are increasing their stocks and their, let's say, capabilities, conventional capabilities, and more. High-end capabilities are still expected by allies to be developed, starting with space. Space is the first layer of defense for NATO, and we consider space quite important for all our the whole construction of deterrence and defense. But not to forget other elements which were for years neglected, like cyber. I mentioned before AI, artificial intelligence. But nowadays you can see on the science area emerging new technology like quantum technology, and this will provoke and transform armed forces and the modus operandi in a critical way. So what we see right now is just a transfer of power, with the US maintaining critical assets and the critical areas where they have hegemony like space or nuclear deterrence. But we are still a family, and I don't see any fracture so far.
Okay, still a family. General Clancy, what does this look like, and how do you read this conversation from the EU? How do they view this?
Yeah, thank you. I think one word sums it up: responsibility. And all of the NATO members and allies here, of course, I can tell you what's really happening in NATO because I'm not there. So, in a sense. But it comes to responsibility. I think we look at it from the other side of the coin. You mentioned the transatlantic relationship. But what it has forced, this shock, if you like, that we have seen, it's being more overt. It's not something new that the US are calling out. It's been there with over a decade more for the EU to step up, for those outside of the US to step more. Collectively, the EU member states plus the allies, they deliver over 50% of the spend in NATO right now. But we do not deliver over 50% of the capabilities and the resources. And the EU, this is where the EU really has becoming more Europeanizing NATO, if you like, where the strength of the EU, regulatory strength, industrial strength, economic strength, these now play a central role to closing gaps for the member states in terms of the capability to create the efficiencies of systems and of the spend in order to enable member states who are also allies to achieve their goals in terms of creating the output for NATO. So this is a coherent approach, if you like. It is almost a full circle. And whatever the relationship ends up with in the transatlantic, NATO will still remain extant. NATO is a 75-year-old structured institution that is strong. And the strength is coming out through what is being articulated by all of my great distinguished colleagues here, that the individual effort brings unity to the collective defense that all of NATO allies understand and want. By building these capabilities, you build the deterrence. And the Europeanization of NATO is supporting and driving this and being more active in terms of responsibility for the security of Europe.
And the EU in holding a strong line against Russia, how unified has it been? And do you foresee problems there?
I think it is, by and large, overall, been very unified. From the very outset, it has said two things. It has said, support Ukraine, weaken Russia. And we've done that on three pillars: militarily, industrially, and also through the pillar of civil resilience and support. And there will be a fourth pillar, and that will be strategic stability, building around internal and external threats, which Kaja Kallas has promoted, and governance and defence, which will come in after, once the ceasefire. And that is about our continuity with Ukraine into the future, and goes to the heart also of the Ukraine being part of the EU. And the EU will walk this journey with Ukraine fully.
Well, I'd like to thank all of you for sticking to time, for your excellent answers. You've taken us into the lunch break perfectly. And I just want to say from the room, a big thank you to this amazing defence panel. Thank you all very much. Thank you.